Hey, I'm JP. I'm an art director based in New York City, and welcome to my home. We have the foyer area, which is quite small. It kind of bleeds into the kitchen where I have my dining set here, and it kind of just like creates this one space here with the living room that I kind of cut off with, I guess my surfboard is the delineation of the space. And then with a few quick steps, we're over here in our living room where most of my things are. This is where like gallery wall is, my console. I just have kind of records and books and stuff, and of course a lot of liquor. All the Western gear I have is an influence from like just things that have been kind of pretty constant in my life. So yeah, like my uncle is sort of like honky-tonk man. He's a Native American Comanche who brought my family over to America from the Philippines. And growing up, you know, I'd see him in his Southwestern shirts, his belt buckles, all of his records, which he had like about thousands of records of honky-tonk music. And at the time growing up, you know, you just lived in this kind of Southwestern space, and he was a big influence in my life and a lot of my cousins' life because he was a kind of our grandpa figure. And all that stuff kind of just is in my subliminal messaging growing up, and all that stuff kind of trickled into here. So, you know, like, you know, they say like designers and artists always wear black, where I always come in and like just same things too, is I wear cowboy boots, and I always got leather on my feet and a nice wax canvas jacket on my back. So that's kind of where that comes from. Speaking of the Western world, my uncle has a crap ton of records. His house actually burned down a few months ago. So my cousins and I went to go through and take inventory of everything. And a lot of this stuff, a lot of the records here, at least on this side, are records from his old honky-tonk days that we managed to salvage from the fire. So you can see some of these things are burned, but this is essentially my way of keeping, I guess, that life alive, and I think you know, giving these records that he cherished and loved a second life. I've surfed since I was a kid. I used to live out in Hawaii for about 7 years. Went to school out there, grew up in Southern California. So really the Pacific was like my home. So having a surfboard is always, one, sentimental, but it's also like something that I do on the weekends and in the mornings. New York City is a cool place, if you haven't heard, as a surf destination. And in the winters, it's really, really good. So in the mornings, around 4 or 5 o'clock, I'll get up before work and go surf. So as you can see, there's a lot of like dirt and grime there. So you may have noticed that I don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV in quite a long time, actually. I always feel like sometimes, especially in a small space like this, the TV is a big focal point in a room. And it's never really, you know, helped me in the past, so I kind of just never really got used to the idea of having one around. So in place of that, I keep a gallery wall, is what you see here. And on this gallery wall, it's a mix of different things, which I like, because I feel like all these pieces are beautiful in their own rights, but I also think that, you know, as a whole, there's a lot of different little stories in each of them. This piece right here is one of the larger ones. This is a piece given to me by friends of mine, the Lobros, which is a street artist duo out in Germany. I had them do a wall down Art Basel a few years back, and this is one of their gifts. Painting above is my own. I've been getting into a lot of plein air painting recently, so I've been trying to figure out how to do it right outside. To the left is an original Degas print that I found upstate at a vintage sale. It's apparently one of his prints. The pictures that you see here, these kind of personal photos, this is of my Uncle Lupe kind of like showing me around Yosemite growing up. It was always a place that we would go to experience the outdoors. So I think that's where I kind of got my love for the outdoors. So I keep that picture as a reminder of who brought me to the outdoors and then me enjoying it for the first few times in my life. And then this picture over here is a funny picture that I took kind of like of my old dog, Pac-Man, kind of under the table, and I thought it was like a quintessential Filipino photo where my brother is in a hoodie eating Spam and rice with like Filipino ketchup on top, and the dog kind of just peeking through under the table, waiting for his turn to have a bite of the Spam. So I kept that photo as a reminder of home and, you know, a reminder of just a good friend, I guess. So apart from this being like an inspiration wall for visuals, I kind of just sit in this chair here and listen to my records. Some of my favorite records are my blues records. Delta Blues is one of my favorites, particularly guys like Robert Johnson, who it's considered king of the Delta Blues. I would say, and I'm sure a lot of other musicians would say in the Western and country world, that Delta Blues is arguably the catalyst for all of country music, rock and roll that we see today. And this music was started by black men and women in the early 1900s, and then there's just so much soul behind it, and there's so much history packed into that, that, you know, listening to it, you can kind of see the undertones and hear the messages and know that the music and the rhythm is what gave rise to all the other genres. So I keep a lot of the records here, but Robert Johnson is by far one of my favorite pieces of music. So up here we have like all my old books, first editions, and kind of just stuff that dates back, you know, years and years ago. But above that are all like my journals that I've kept over the years, dating back to when I was a kid. I think it's super, super important to have some sort of journaling practice in your life. I started doing it because I just was alone a lot as a kid. It was one of those things where I was always in my own head. I use journaling as a way to talk to myself and keep up my thoughts and my sketches down on a piece of paper. And in times where I was stressed out or times where I was onto some sort of idea, I would put it on a paper so that way I don't forget it, because I don't have good short-term memory anyway. But then I think that practice has kept on going over the years. I have field notes. You know, I always have a notebook with me at all times. So I keep a notebook with me here. If I have an idea, then when that idea flourishes or blossoms, I put that into a notebook or a sketchbook. That kind of becomes an even bigger idea. So these are kind of like for quick thoughts while I'm on the go. And then as you can see here, I have like a bunch of tiny little notebooks that these come from. So I don't ever throw these away. I keep these with me as a reference. I'd like to think that one day down the line, when I'm on my deathbed, or if I have a kid or my kid's kid needs some sort of guidance, I could look back at when I was their age and look at it and see what I was thinking and see how I overcome some sort of situation or navigate through some sort of milestone in life. So in a lot of these journals, I almost like not just talk to myself, but I talk to my future kin, which is something I try to keep a practice of doing. All my other books range from philosophy books like from Michel Foucault, art writing from Donald Judd, and then my personal favorite since I was a kid, all of Tolkien's stuff from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. These machete pieces here that you would look at and be like, why the hell are you having these pieces here? But these machetes are cultural. They're made by a smith that my dad knew in the Philippines, and my dad helped work on these. These are all traditional Filipino weaponry. I keep with me both as a symbolism to my culture and also kind of just, you know, because they're cool. And this one itself is the one that was specifically designed for me, that has my name kind of etched in to the blade here. So if you ever look into Filipino martial arts, Kali, Eskrima, Arnis, these are all weapons that have to do with that fighting style, and it's something that Filipino people were revered for pre-colonization, so much so that there's this story or myth that borongs, which is something that Filipinos wear that's very see-through and transparent, that when they wear that to formal gatherings, the reason why they wear that is because the Spanish had them wear that to make sure that they're not packing any of these knives or machetes inside, because they realized that they were so dangerous with those things. So now it's integrated into our culture, the borongs, the transparent like kind of overshirt. But prior to that, you know, Filipinos carry these kind of weapons proudly because they knew how to use it. I try to keep the space here pretty like clean, but still enough items around me to kind of keep me in the zone and inspired. But everything is accessible here. This desk is a really nice desk given to me by a friend. It's wide enough to be able to draw or paint and work on design work.
Tell me about that typewriter.
So I keep a typewriter, not because I'm just like some random hipster in the middle of Brooklyn, but so I try to stay off of screens, as you know I mentioned before. So every now and then I'll write letters to friends that I haven't talked to in a while, or letters to friends that are kind of like off grid, or I just don't know where they are. So like they haven't texted or emailed, but I know they're around, and they kind of just like are more recluse. So I'll send them letters, and I think sometimes it's even to people who are always available online. I like to send letters to people just to kind of like let them know I'm there and I'm thinking about them. It's always nice to kind of get a letter back in the mail. I think a lot of that art of letter writing has been lost in our generation. I think it's nice that a lot of people are bringing that back. So that's why I keep a typewriter. I have a few cameras, but this is the one I keep with me at all times. It's a Leica M240, if you know cameras, nice 28mm. I always get bagged on by friends in the industry for taking such a nice camera out into the field where it's like I'm covered in water, or like it's raining, or like there's dust everywhere. I commit 1,000 crimes by like taking off the lens in the middle of a dust storm and putting a new lens on. So I am a habitual abuser of cameras, but this one is all brassed up. You can see the brass kind of finishings from like the sweat in my hands, but I don't know. For me, it's I clean it up after and get it serviced and stuff. So at the end of the day, it's you do with what you can. I think when you're designing a space, especially in New York City, sometimes spaces are limited and they're always varying. Like you might like particular furniture or furniture piece, but it might not work in your home. So when I look at a space like this, which we have high ceilings and a narrow living room, I try to think about how can I maximize negative space, but not relinquishing any kind of like my livability in it. So I got a couch with a high back and a short seat, so that way it feels more open, as opposed to a low back and a wide seat. So that way like people can kind of walk around the space a little bit more. So I think the space in general is like a way for me to be thoughtful of how I want to live in it. In Hawaii, quilting is a big thing. The Queen, Liliuokalani, would quilt and have all these beautiful pieces in the Iolani Palace. So I took some of that home, and this is just like a reminder of a home I used to live in back in Hawaii. And that's my home. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I'll see you around.